Hey everybody, Bobby from Your Online Genius here. Glad you're here. We're starting a new theme week today. We're going to be talking about blogging and the law and legal issues that impact bloggers and people who are building platforms and who have a blog. So we're going to get into that today. Today we're going to be talking about issues related to how much you can borrow from other people and where you cross the line into inappropriate borrowing. Now, before we do that, again, just a reminder, I'm Bobby Klink. I am an online entrepreneur and an intellectual property lawyer, and I formed Your Online Genius to help provide online entrepreneurs with the information and resources they need to protect their own platforms and their own businesses. It was born out of my experience seeing way too many cases in my legal practice where entrepreneurs had made mistakes early on when they quite honestly were at a point that they couldn't justify hiring me or another attorney to actually do the things for them in a one-on-one relationship. And I get it. You know, when I started my law firm business, I was doing a lot of bootstrapping on marketing issues and other issues that weren't necessarily within my wheelhouse. So I get the need to bootstrap. So my purpose in forming Your Online Genius was to provide information to folks so that they could get themselves protected at the outset, at the point where they can't yet justify getting hiring a lawyer, basically as a bridge until they get to the point that they're up and running and successful and making enough money that they can justify hiring a lawyer. Now, I want to be clear. Working one-on-one with a lawyer has a ton of benefits. I still work one-on-one with clients, but the purpose of this business is to ensure that we don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, which is one of my favorite sayings, and make sure that you are able to get the information you need to do it yourself until you're to the point of being able to work with a lawyer. So that's the business. We're doing theme weeks. We've already covered things like podcasting and social media in prior weeks and course creation. And this week is all about blogging and legal issues that can come up with your blog. Now, today, the title of today's lesson is Don't Steal. And so let's dig into what that means. I think we all generally know you can't steal. That's a pretty obvious thing, but people often don't know exactly what the line is. What can you do and not do with content online? And there's a couple of places where this comes up. That can come up, but I literally have found these pretty extreme examples that I think everybody knows is not okay. I got roped into a LinkedIn conversation where a person was complaining because literally people had copied his entire blog post and put it on their own blog. And that clearly is not allowed. I don't think anyone would ever think that's allowed. If you do, and you're not sure, let me be clear, you can't do that. That is copyright infringement. Think about it, it's plagiarism. If you were in school and you did something like that, that wouldn't be allowed, so you can't do it in the context of your blog either. That is kind of the issue, and what we're talking about in this space is copyright law. Copyright law is an automatic protection that you get for any kind of creative content you're creating. There might be some exceptions, but broadly speaking, it's going to cover just about anything within your platform or anyone else's platform is going to be copyright protected. It covers images, it covers music, it covers videos, it covers written content. That's the first example if you think about it as a book. And what copyright law does is it defines who has the right to make a copy or distribute the work. And so here what we're talking about is when can you take information from other people and copy it. Now, I want to be clear about something else here. What copyright law protects is not the idea. It protects the particular expression of the idea. And so what does that mean? Well, let's go back to some basic ideas. So most people who write movie scripts would tell you that, and I don't know the number exactly, but I think there are less than 10. I think it's somewhere between 5 and 8 different basic scripts. And when you start thinking about various movies you've seen, they kind of fall into this. They fall into similar patterns of what they're about. the differences come in how you express those things. And so obviously that's not copyright infringement, but you can even go back a step further than that. So there was a movie in the 90s called 10 Things I Hate About You, which was a movie that was actually a spin on a very old tale, not just one of, say, the 7 theme, types of general types, but a very specific. It was very much like Shakespeare's The Taming of the Shrew. And so that is a concept that has been expressed multiple ways over time, and that's not copyright infringement. Taking the same idea and expressing it a different way, not a problem. That's good because obviously if you're, for example, someone who wants to talk about list building, there's only so many ideas you can talk about with respect to list building. And the same thing with SEO or any of these other areas, financial services, all of these concepts, you can use over and over again. I'll use a simple example. In the personal finance world, there is the concept of the debt snowball. You don't need to know what that is, but Dave Ramsey, who is a huge personality, he I don't know if he coined it, he probably didn't, but he's one of the biggest proponents of it. But I'll tell you, the finance columnist here in Washington, D.C., in the Washington Post, she uses that same concept because it's an idea. She's allowed to talk about that. That's not a problem. So in your blog, you can do all of that. The question comes when you want to copy portions of what other people have done. And again, you can use quotes as long as you attribute it. You'll see that obviously all over the place. That's not a problem. But let me be clear. If you were to just grab content from someone else and put quotes at the beginning and quotes at the end and say it was from there, then come on. That's just taking it and stealing. But you can use some quotes, pull quotes out to make a point. Because that's what's called a fair use. You are using just a part of it to make a point within a broader concept you are setting out. So that's fine. Again, what we're talking about here is you just have to come up with your own words. You have to, come up with your own way to express the various ideas. As long as you do that, you're fine. But again, you also need to think about some other issues. It's not just about the blog posts themselves. It's about, if you were to take images, if you were to take all of these other things, you have to be careful not to just copy someone else's copyrighted work and put it in your blog without permission. Now, another issue I want to talk about is what happens, because I think if you're watching this, you're a conscientious person, you're not going to do that, you're going to be careful about this. So you will likely run into this actually on the other way, and that is, what can you do if someone else steals your work? And so that is what I want to talk about. Now, first of all, I'm going to tell you, you're going to have to make a decision from a business perspective of whether it's worth spending time, effort, and money to do it. Because there's going to be time involved, there's going to be effort involved to get anything done on this grounds. And so if it's a one-off thing, it's probably not worth it, okay? But that is something you have to think about. But let's say you decide, hey, this is a big deal. Let's say you have an epic blog post or a cornerstone blog post, and someone copies it and pastes it on their blog, and you're worried about losing SEO and losing all these issues. So if that's the case, what do you do? Well, I can give you good advice if the person or their web host or anything like that is in the United States. If so, you want to make use of what's called the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, the DMCA. This was a law that was passed back in 1998, and it intended basically to strike a balance between copyright holders and all of the various people on the internet. And so one of the things it did was balance when is it that a service provider, so think of it as someone who hosts information but isn't infringing copyrights themselves, but their users are infringing. When can they avoid being liable? And when would they be liable? And the balance it struck is it said, hey, as long as these companies, so think of like a Facebook, a Twitter, a YouTube, if those companies respond promptly upon being notified that a user is infringing copyrights, they will not be held liable. So these companies will always favor taking action against a copyright infringer because they want to avoid being in trouble themselves. So what does this mean for you? Well, if you have a blog post, it is copyrighted, okay, because you put it out there. As soon as you put it out there, it got that protection. If someone copies it and someone does something and is infringing that copyright, and they're, for example, a website that is hosted by, let's just say, GoDaddy, well, the first thing you might want to do is reach out to the actual blog or the actual person who did it and ask them to take it down and say, hey, that's my stuff, don't copy. But the fact that they copied it, the whole thing, and posted it, they probably are not someone who you necessarily are going to get a good response from. But if you can't get that, at that point what you can do is send what's called a takedown notice to the web host. Send it to to GoDaddy and say, look, hey, this website, they are infringing my copyright. And see if you can get them to stop hosting the website. That's another option you have. If it were put on to some other site, for example, to Facebook or to one of the social media networks, you can do the same thing. You can notify them of the infringement. And what you should do in all of these cases, go to the terms of service for the website at issue or for the hosting company, etc., and just try to find the section for the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. They will have something in there that describes what you need to do, how to go through the process. So that is going to be your best tool to protect yourself, because let me be honest with you. For the most part, you're not going to get much traction by going after the person who wrote it, either to get them to take it down or to sue them, because they probably don't have any money. But your protection may come in getting the person who is hosting the information on a technical perspective to take it down. And so that is what the Digital Millennium Copyright Act does. So that's it for today. That's the end of the lesson. The point, the key takeaways, again, remember, you can't copy the content and the expression of an idea. You can borrow, or you can take the idea, you can take snippets and quotes and things like that and put them in, as long as you put quotes in and attribute it, etc. But you can't simply copy large portions without attributing it, or the whole thing, and then just use that as a blog post. But as long as you don't do that, you should be in good shape. And again, remember, if you run into someone stealing yours, think about the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. Look at the place that's hosting their website or hosting the content, and try to find how you can submit a DMCA takedown notice. So that's it for today. Tomorrow we are going to be talking about images and how to find the right images. It's related to today because it's about copyright. And how to go about that process for your blog. So that's what we'll be talking about tomorrow. If you enjoyed this lesson, again, what I would commend you to do is, I have a free cheat sheet that walks through kind of the 4 biggest mistakes that I see entrepreneurs making online. And a lot of them cross through various aspects of your platform. So it'll be things that really kind of apply to multiple areas of your business. And you can get your hand on that cheat sheet free at mistakes.youronlinegenius.com. Again, mistakes.youronlinegenius.com. You can get that information there, or that cheat sheet there, and learn what these mistakes are and how to avoid it. So until tomorrow, keep up the good work and keep building your platforms. Thanks.